Welcome to episode 79 of A Master's Degree in Rolling Terribly. I'm your host, Eddie. Joining me this week, a man who's popped his pill and raring to go. And now we get to watch him throw his weight around with his giant... Oh. No, it's okay. No, really, guys, it's fine. Don't worry. It happens to all of us. Gaz! Say hi, Gaz.
Hi, guys. I don't know if I was supposed to be involved in that conversation there at all, but I imagine that the joke is completely lost on anyone who doesn't remember any of our talk from when Phil was playing the drill.
Yeah. So do you want to rehash of how that kind of works? Like, is it too much pressure getting to you, or what is it?
No, I think the dick jokes are probably more in your base, right? Like... So maybe we can explain that later.
What are you talking about? Straight people make dick jokes all the time. I would almost say they make them more.
I wasn't implying anything around that. I was just saying that seems to be, your kind of go-to. But yes, in short, it was. We were talking about the pressure. We kind of aligned the pressure for the drill with hardness, and Phil lent right into it. He just kept saying, "I'm hard." Maybe that wasn't anything to do with the drill. Maybe he was just really enjoying the scenario.
Maybe he's reading out his texts. Who knows?
That's it. Yeah, he reads the whole thing on the text.
That's true.
Unlike his cards.
It's nice to be back because I've been sick, and I mean I was better earlier in the week when we actually had our session. So it's the throat's still playing up a little bit, and it might be a little bit deeper than normal, which is really annoying, and I still have a slight cough, so I'll try to keep that in check. But
you sure? I thought, aren't you just using a Barry White filter?
No.
Oh, okay.
I want to do that, though. I should do that. We should get those AI filters that sound like Morgan Freeman's on the show.
Just have, two Morgan Freemans?
Nah, Morgan Freeman and David Attenborough. I think that'd be a good combo. Have they ever done anything together?
Maybe.
Two iconic voices.
Yeah, I mean, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
If not, let's do it.
Yeah, so we're... little out of touch. It's been 2 weeks, and we had the amDirt chats that I put together and uploaded last week, which is really fun, really good with our team member. Well, team member sounds like he's working for us, but sure, we'll just go with that. Dang and Dangaga, and that was a really fun chat. It was good because it was actually a lot of conversation about Frosthaven, but also just about gaming in general, from metagaming and guides and all that kind of stuff, and fun factor, which was really cool to dive into.
Yeah, one thing I've really loved about, and I'm just thinking about it now, like reflecting a little bit on the chat with Dan and like all of our amDirt chats, is they've all been so different. Like, it's really funny because like you'd think pull person from community playing the same game, talk about game, we'll go over it, but they all have different stories and different ways they're playing it. Everything from like Ricewind who's got like 8 games on the go, and it's just like, we can't play this week, I better start a new solo game or something like that. But like it just is, and everyone has brings a different element to it, which is really cool. It keeps it fresh, but I love meeting these people and learning more about them. I'm just impressed with how fresh it feels talking to people about the same game.
Yeah.
We've been talking for 80 episodes and it's still kind of fresh. So, I mean, that's good, but
super fresh. But no, it's been really fun for all the reasons you pointed out. The only one I can't really remember too much, and it was a bit on the lackluster side, was probably Dwarf. Like, it was just so long ago, and Dwarf was really like new to us and the game and all of that kind of stuff. So no, maybe we should get him back on at some stage for an update.
Yeah, well, it's like pancakes though, right? The first one's a write-off. Like, they always mess the first one up, right? That's just a tester and you throw it away. So I think Dwarf was great, and he set the scene for us so that we knew all the things not to do. And now we have to get him back on now that we've got like a heated up pan, we're lubed up, we've got all the condiments ready to go.
I think
I don't know how much further I can really squeeze this pancake joke, but I'll bring it back up later in the episode.
I think, yes, we'll work on it. So if you're listening, let's get you back on. Let's have a bit of an update. We've obviously nearly finished our campaign, so we can probably dive a little further into it. Yep. Talk about some of the many projects you're doing. Like, I hear you're doing a futuristically on Frosthaven as a document, so that if you want to add another 150 scenarios to any given game. You've already got that written up, which is pretty cool. So you can
And there's
pick it
the
up.
app as well.
There's
Yeah.
the app, the
He's got an
FAQ
app in
app.
development. Yep.
We're
So
gonna cop so
no,
much
we
crap
should
for the
do
amount of
like
people that believe that. By the way,
pardon, what's
we're
that?
gonna cop so much crap if so many people go, "Whoa, the amDirt guy said that." Yeah, doing an FAQ app. That's amazing.
But it's one of those things, where an idea or like a report on something can be circulated so much that it becomes real, and then it has to. So when an app is in development, that's why it will happen, because people just assume that it's currently in development. So like he'll announce something like, "Hey, I'm making an app," and people are like, "Oh, you're already making this, weren't you?" See, so it's like, oh, okay.
Either that or someone else is like, "Well, there's no FAQ app yet." So I hear that Dwarf's working on one, but if I, with my tech skills and all of that, can pump one out first, I'll be known as the FAQ app guy, and it won't all be Dwarf's glory anymore.
That's it. Well, so there you go. If you want to develop an app, you can hit up Dwarf and let him know, because it's currently in progress, and you might be able to help him out.
So on today's episode, guys, we're actually going to do our standard dirt sheet, which I've got a couple of items on there. We'll have a chat about our scenario for the week, which was scenario 88 collections capstone, which picks up after the last scenario we did, as they are linked with the old collector, old mate. Gaz will be giving us his first impressions on a character who is boring, who specializes in boring. You specialize in boring.
I do.
Yeah. No. Well, yeah. Like drilling, boring.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. Like that. Yeah. And we'll have a chat about items again, part 2.
Ooh.
Which is our best and worst of all the different categories. And today we'll be covering chess pieces.
Chess pieces, yep. We've got some spicy ones in this one.
Spicy and juicy. So, on the dirt sheet today, Mark has retired, and we put a poll out on
his character, right?
He's playing a game. What? He's retired his character. He's retired the kelp, the very, very busted kelp. Although lately, I must say that nearly every character seems to be busted now that we are playing into, I don't know, something. We discover something like you did with the shards recently, and then you go, "Hey, this is pretty good when everything dies, right?" And Mark was doing the same thing, but he has switched to Bane Crab for the last few scenarios, and that's been very fun and very interesting to see the other side of it. He's retiring at the end of this scenario, and we had to put a poll out in our Discord to basically say, "Hey, we need some help." Mark wants some help, basically, to decide what he wants to play next. And Mark has brought out, I think, 3 10-minute guides on previous characters he's played. So in a way, you can almost bait him into making one for a character that you may want to see one of his little quick, dirty guides. And I think the options were what? Shackles, Geminate, and Snowflake.
Yeah.
How's it looking?
So currently, the Shackles is in the lead.
Oh.
All right. It's got a decent lead as well. So I think this must be 58%, with Geminate on 23 and Snowflake on 19, which really doesn't mean anything when you don't know how many people there are, because that could just be 10 people, right? Or some percentages that works that out. But yeah, Shackles has a decent lead, so it's going to take a bit to get Geminate across the line. But that's interesting, because obviously there's people there that either A, want to hear about Shackles, B, think that it's a good mix for Mark, or C, think that it's a terrible mix for Mark and want to troll him.
Yeah.
So,
but there was no reason in why people are voting, so it could be all of those things, and we just have to wait and see. Once if that stays at the top and he actually rolls that, we get to sort of work out which one it actually is.
Yeah, I mean, we 100% know that all the votes for Geminate were for trolling. So, I appreciate that. I think I actually set it to 1 vote per person as well. So it's not one of those ones where people just click everything.
But you can change your mind, right?
You can change your vote. Yes, correct. I believe so.
We left
I don't
it up
know.
for a week.
I can't vote on it. So,
because you put it, right?
Oh wait, no, I can vote for it.
Oh,
okay, interesting. I just haven't. Yeah, so no, we're really keen. We will be playing in a few days. So yeah, by the time you hear this, you'll probably have a very small window to vote, because it'll come out on Monday. We play on Mondays. So if you do hear it and you're hearing this now, pause it, go in there, vote, right, add in, otherwise your opinion will be lost. And yeah.
Yeah, no, and we'll have a shackles, which, if it is a shackles, which will be interesting with the elements, and I think they've got wind and fire as their
Is it?
main elements from
Okay.
memory,
Yeah, I don't
loose
know.
memory.
It seems like it should be dark and fire because they're like
Yeah,
edgy, right?
I suppose this is
Or
we've had a few dark users.
yeah,
Um,
or is there maybe it's the what's the death guy? The death
Deathwalker,
stroller?
yeah,
Uh they're like the emo edgy dark
I
wizard,
think
aren't
so.
they?
Well, shackles a bit more metal, a bit more rock and roll.
Yeah, maybe a bit
Yeah,
more chaotic rather than yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the second part of the dirt sheet I want to talk about, just very very quickly, very vaguely, is that
I'm sorry, but I have to say this now.
yeah,
At some point, we need to discuss what all the characters' genre of music is.
yeah, okay. I totally can see that. I think that'll be fun. We've got an unboxing coming up, or that we're planning on making. I don't know if I should reveal what it's about or anything like
I
that,
don't.
but no, okay,
Mystery.
yeah.
Mystery unboxing.
Yeah, mystery unboxing. So that will be coming out very soon. Because whoa! But haven't we already unboxed or already played all the characters?
I know. What could this be? And just to give some hints for those playing at home, the amDirt Jeopardy game, it's something that neither of us really know anything about.
Absolutely nothing about.
Which could be all of Frosthaven, so that doesn't really narrow it down. But like,
We're unboxing Frosthaven, guys. I'm just gonna go
yes.
out and say it.
Yeah.
We're gonna read the rule book, and go through the cards and make sure that they're in the right piles and all of those things. So very exciting.
Yeah, I better get started on that actually. My New Year's resolution of reading the rule book.
Was that your New Year's resolution?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was it for this year or next year?
Well, it was for this year, right? Like I made it at last New Year's for this year.
Do you reckon you'll read the rule book for Gloomhaven 2.0?
Look, I don't want to lie to you, Daddy. Look, maybe.
I think we should play the Discovery version of Gloomhaven 2.0 when it comes out, and that is just play it. And then if you have a question about something, we then see if we can find it in the rulebook.
Or Ask Dwarf.
Maybe.
Oh, maybe for our first playthrough, we get Dwarf live on like a screen in
to read
there.
it to us?
And when we do anything, we can have him go, no, it doesn't work like that.
How long until we disconnect the camera and turn him off?
Turn 2, maybe. Like I think once each of us have had a turn and we've been corrected 8 times, and we're like, look, oh no, we're going through a tunnel.
You're breaking up.
Yeah, yeah. Shh. It's that bad Australian internet.
I know. So off we go to scenario 88. This was Collection Capstone. This was also designed by Dan Patrice and written by Crystal Mazur. And, what happened previously? So Captain Olmsted, this was a job posting that Captain Olmsted has, he brought us in, this is according to Dwarf's thing, so it could be accurate, it could not be. He brings us an Inox girl, and she's found nearly frozen just outside Frosthaven. And she told us, or told him, that the Collector, and it's always like when villains have, or monsters have a weird name like that, it's always like, do you think it's try hard a little bit too much? Like, do you think they just need to maybe just go with Bob or like Henry or something like that?
Well, the big question is, did he give himself the nickname? Because you can't do that. You don't get to pick your own nickname in anything ever, right? Like it's forced
true.
upon you. And so the question is, did he go around telling people he was the Collector, or did he just start collecting things and being real evil? And then people the media needed a headline, right? So they're like, the Collector strikes again. In which case, then that's fine, right? You can be that because it's cool. But if he's just like, no, guys, it's not Bob, it's the Collector. I changed my name by default.
I want to be the Collector, guys.
Yeah, like
I'm being awkward then. It's like, you're forcing us to call you something that doesn't feel natural.
Yeah.
So the girl managed to tell us where the Collector is. So we went off to the Collector's. Bob, sorry. The Bob's lair was a metallic structure in the Whitefire Woods, and we fought the Collector's guards, Bob's guards, and we rescued the girl's 2 brothers. One was exceptionally beaten up, like real bad. We head back to Frosthaven for medical care, where you continue to finish the monster. So that must mean that we then went off to find Bob. The Collector, I'm just going to do that because it just sounds right. Now it's a thing because I've accepted it. All right. The collector now wants to taste our life force.
It's a bit personal. He hasn't even bought us a drink.
No. Well, what does life force taste like, guys? And like,
Never had any.
Wow.
I
okay.
mean, probably like the that's like Skittles, I imagine, right?
Yeah,
Like Taste the Rainbow.
I do like Skittles.
Oh, like maybe the life force is like when you get like a whole handful of Skittles and you put them in your mouth at once, and it just tastes like sugar, right? Like it's just
I
like
think that's ultimately what it all tastes like. I'm
like
trying to
gluggy.
remember what it's like, and it's just like, no, it's just a mismatch of like, flavors in there that just melt into pure sugar, and then it gets all grainy, and then you can stir it into your tea.
So, I mean, if anybody wants to do the, kind of go one step further, if you're not listening, like just listening to this or watching us, you can also pause it, go get a bag of Skittles, and you can chuck them in your mouth right now while you listen, and you can just immerse yourself in the life force.
Is there a world where we actually get paid for all of the sponsored crap that we keep dropping, like Skittles and Pepsi? Like we drink Pepsi on stream. Like, where's the payout?
We need to do the what is it, Wayne's World thing where we angle the can, like oh, I just like a nice tasty beverage. But yeah, I totally love some of that Skittles money.
Yeah, there's that. There's ketchup. I'm pretty sure Westinghouse make fridges. Like we've got a lot of stuff. So
sorry, I'll stop interrupting. It's been 2 weeks, and I've just got all this interrupting that I have to get out of my system.
That's a good point. So the scenario goal for scenario 88, guys. Scenario is complete when Bob is dead. All right. At the end of that round, we read a thing. So scenario effect, everyone gets wound. Now you've got a new character. Does he get to ignore that?
No.
Okay. It's like old times. Because I do, and I think Mark does, which is pretty cool. So no wound for us. Monster combinations. This is juicy. This is exciting. So we have Savas Ice Storm, Savas Lava Flow. Savas Lava Flow. After nearly 2 years, we finally see one. And this is amazing because Kaliga gives us a quiz where the answer for at least 2 of the questions was Savas Lava Flow. And we've never seen one, so we just had not been able to even make any connection or even use that as a guess.
And that's a really interesting kind of something to think about. Like when we were talking a few weeks ago about the guest designers and all the shade and hate people were throwing at guest designers and stuff like that, which I think is completely unfounded because this again was a really like kind of fun scenario. But like the fact that they were able to put a monster in it that's almost not in any of the others, like it's a weird thing where there is a monster like Lava Flow that we haven't seen yet, and so it's clearly not in any of the main storylines, right?
It could be, but on a different branch. Like,
true.
That's all. So it definitely could be. I find it bizarre that we've gone this long without seeing them, but also we've gone for ages without seeing Vermlings either. And I'm pretty sure the Lava Flow is the last unseen mob that we have yet to see that has, unless there's a standee that I'm just really glossing over. But it's crazy that it's taken us this long to see it, unless we have messed something up majorly, and they did exist at an earlier point.
Yeah, people are like, what? Didn't you fight them in the Lava Flow quest line? And we're like, whoa, what was that? Like, where you go and save the Lava Flow people? And we're like, oh no. And there's like a whole board that we just didn't miss. It's like still in the box.
Yeah. I can totally see that happening. So it's very exciting that we have both of them, and it's an assumption. It's, I don't know, metagaming, an assumption, etc., that they are going to be a slightly hotter version of the Ice Storm.
Yeah.
Right? Both of us, both have elemental names. That were born with those names. They weren't given those as nicknames or anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, interesting as well, because the Ice Flow ones we have constantly put in the bin because we find they don't do anything, right? They just do a lot of text and nothing eventuates. So I had no idea what to expect. Like, is this the Ice Flow's more competent, like, sibling? Like, they're like, oh, I just do damage.
Yeah.
Rather than heaps of text and nothing. So
that's a good point.
It was interesting coming into it.
Yeah, it wouldn't be a direct mirror, but it could be, but we're excited to see kind of what it would do. It was just safe to assume that it was going to definitely play with 2 different elements as opposed to the ice. That it will be different elements to the Ice Storm, which is good because some of us use a lot of elements. I don't care about fire, but definitely, or frost, which is apparently what they have. But at least my mate Ice Storm helped me out with I don't know, one thing, which was good. So when you set up the scenario and you look at the actual the scenario key, it tells you what mobs are in there. And obviously, because of these two mobs, it then just says, hey, you're also potentially going to have flame demons, you're going to have frost demons, you're going to have earth demons and wind demons. And it's like, oh, and that list looks scary until you realize they're not really on the board. It's just because of the mobs that you're fighting. You also threw us Lurker Claw Crushers, which was, I don't quite understand where they come from unless they're just like, hey, we need something with shields, which sounds a bit dumb because everything has shields. But yeah, I don't know what the thematic reason is other than, hey, we need some crabby, crustacean, shieldy thing in this scenario because we can't think of anything else to go with it.
Yeah, maybe the theme of it was because in the first one, or the last scenario, it was algox.
They were in there.
We had crabs, we had
polar bears,
a couple, like a robot, and polar bears. So I think the idea is that he's collecting stuff, right? So maybe it's supposed to be like a range of things. It's not supposed to make sense because he's kind of collecting different things to eat their Skittles, their life force.
So why wouldn't you why wouldn't he collect Mind Snippers then over Claw Crushers? Why wouldn't you collect the better unit or mob?
Well, I don't know. I mean, in our experience, Mind Snippers have been in the bin, right? So
what about wave throwers?
Maybe when he started collecting, he watched our tier list and then he captured things based on our tier list.
So true. First room setup. Oh, sorry. And also the collector is part of the monster combination, which we know nothing about. So other than he collects things. B tier things. First room setup. We had a hex-shaped tile. We had an elite ice storm and 2 normal lava flows. So we get the 3 of them immediately on the board. We get to sort of duke it out with them and see what it's like. And there's a door behind them. And special rules, there's none so far, which is pretty cool. We like that. What are your thoughts on doing another boss scenario? I mean, we haven't done one in a while. This one's labeled as a boss scenario in the flowchart. Were you excited? You made a comment about hoping that it had health phasing or something like that.
Well, because we had Blink Blade. And I mean, we did have our co-op had respec'd into like Bane, so not just like insta-gear bosses, which is good. But yeah, that was the I hopefully that it has phases. That was before I looked at its health though, because it comes up with its health and we saw it had like 160 odd health. So it's just because we've had this before, right? We've had a Blink Blade in the party. I've had something with 100, 150 health, and then it's just been deleted in 3 turns.
Yeah, that and now we have a kelp, and I mean, if we had the lineup of the stab crab and also you were still on shards, might be a little bit more underwhelming going into this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, again, not to rehash over the shards thing, but that required me to have 3 targets and one of them be brittled. So, like, it needed a fair bit of setup. It wasn't just me, less like dropping a card and doing 170 damage.
Yeah, it wasn't Blink Blade, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I was just hopeful that it wasn't going to be lackluster.
Yeah. Okay. Did any of this factor into the difficulty setting choices for the session?
No, Mark needs to complete a thing to retire.
Yes, a challenge.
A challenge. So we dropped it down to 1 + 1, and a challenge card. To do that. And also the idea that I'm on a new character, so I'm probably going to be more shit than I normally am at the game.
Yeah, there were a few, I wouldn't say that, but like, yes, there are a few factors as to why we decided to drop the difficulty, because we didn't want to repeat this scenario like we did the one just before it as well.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. So,
challenge card we have for this one. Now, we had monsters start with 3 blesses, which I'm going to go ahead and say I found 2 of them.
Yeah,
which is really, I was really good at it, finding the 2 blesses, which blew my mind a little bit. Luckily, it was on attack 3s or something like that, but still, it was pretty gross.
Well, it was funny because you were... people were like, oh, we need you to tank. And you're like, I'm not tanking until those blesses are gone. And then you got hit a couple of times and they were going out. I'm like, wow, that's one way to get rid of them.
Pretty much. I will say that we had to run this scenario twice because we did fail the first time. So we did have a second run with a different challenge card. And it was the one that I can't remember the name of it, but the normal mobs will have 1 shield if their elite counterpart is present on the board.
Yeah.
Which we were fine with. We obviously are being very selective over which challenge we pick when we draw from the 3, just to make sure that we can finish off Mark's thing and also make sure that the scenario is not dumb.
Yeah. And on our second run as well, we did only run with 3 people.
Yeah, we did. Phil had a special occasion to go to, so he had to be done by a certain amount of time, so he had enough time and energy and all that kind of stuff to attend the special occasion, so we 3-manned it. With him, he did shuffle out modified decks, which was really kind of him before he left, which made a bit of a difference.
It's massive difference. Like we'll talk about that once we get back into it a bit more. But yeah, that was the bonus. He left us his luck.
He did. The pets we brought, we had Weedy the Ruin Machine and we had Wart the Lightning Eel, which is a pretty cool combination. On the second run, after those 2 failed us, we brought Iron and Wine the Piranha Pig, and we brought Ricewind the Snow Imp.
So I want to talk about this because it won't come up during the episode. But the reason we're both laughing when Daddy mentioned the Piranha Pig, Iron and Wine, specifically the Piranha Pig, is that we have failed to utilize the Iron and Wine's ability. So for those that don't know, the Piranha Pig is loot. Everyone gets to loot 1, right? Yeah. And we have failed to make use of that almost ever. I don't
think we've ever done it properly or used him properly.
Yeah, it's always been the last minute, like, oh, we've got that. I loot 1.
Yeah.
Right. And so there were all these occasions where we were could have used it and we were moving out of the room to go into the next room to fight and leaving loot behind, whereas it a really good use of one of the pets that we have would have got that. So we were making the joke, or Daddy was making the joke that
the dude in the cricket crowd meme with his arms on his hands on his hips.
Disgruntled guy, right?
Yeah, that guy.
You can put it up on the screen when we do it. But yeah, that's what he.
Because you were loot oneing yourself through cards.
I did. I actually played a card to loot 1. When I'm like, I didn't even need to do that. I could just use the pet that we got that we never used. So yeah.
Our party I was on a level 9 Astral, so I've hit max level with the Astral. Gaz is on a level 4 Drill, Fresh Newbie, or Timmy, is that what we call them? Mark on his level 9 Kelp, who is spec'd into Bane, and Phil is on the level 5 Blinkblade, which I didn't realize it was only 5. I thought he was definitely higher.
He keeps talking about how he's not Super Saiyan yet.
No, he's still got a lot of -1s in his AMD that he's working through. As the Drill, how did you prepare going into this? Did you just grab any cards, or what was the deal?
No, this is probably the character I've done the most amount of planning going into. And it was probably because I've seen it before and I knew that there was a bit of a puzzle going on here. So not that I did any research on how other people are playing it, but I did look up the cards that I was going to have and try to see a little bit of how the synergy would work. Just because it doesn't seem to be one of those characters that you just kind of go in, pick your cards and go, right? Because they do require and trigger off depending on where your steam levels are at, or your pressure, or whatever it's called. And I just know that there's got to be some kind of, from my understanding, is a little bit of an ebb and flow. So it was trying to pick cards based on making sure I can utilize that.
Yeah, okay. I like them. I decided to, because of the lineup that we have and all the damage, I'm still playing heavily into a tank focused build and not really bringing the swords at the moment due to scaling. I just haven't really been into the whole sword thing. I still have the cards. I haven't changed a single thing. But what I find interesting about the Astral right now and the way I'm playing it is that I've kept all the cards that I've played, that I've taken every single time I've leveled up, which a lot of them are the tanking counterparts or infusions that will help with that. But I'm still taking a lot of really early cards, like the ones in the Axis, and they're still proving to be really, really efficient and really just good at doing the basics, like getting the basics right without me feeling like it's overcomplicating the actual character. So that's been something that I'm definitely picking up as we. You would hope so. I'm level 9 now. Section links. When the doors are opened, we read the corresponding section. We're at +1, like Gaz said. So, Gaz, what's the strategy here? We CC these guys before they summon because we know that they're going to summon at some stage. And if they all do, that's 3 extra mobs in the room. We don't want that.
No, we don't. I think we just kind of went in with the plan of just trying to kill shit, right? They don't have... I think the Ice Flow has shields, but neither of them have retaliate, so there wasn't really much plan around there. We didn't know what the lava flows were going to do, other than likely summon, which is usually a late initiative. So it was kind of, I think we were just like, all right, let's everyone go in and start trying to kill them.
Yeah, and we know
But that
that
was
we've
it.
got our BB, Blink Blade. Burst potential is always there, so we know the damage is going to come from there. We've got a lot of CC, which we've demonstrated multiple times, especially with the Astral and also the Kelp, with a lot of Immobilize, a lot of Disarms, all that kind of stuff. So it's like, yeah, CC and Burst, basically.
Yeah.
And then we'll just see what the drill does, because like
knows?
we didn't really know from a long time ago, and like our experience of seeing them was a very tanky, good movement, retaliating kind of thing. But we were going to see what you were going to do with it.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. Because the way Phil played, and this was kind of to touch on drill again, I wanted to play in a different way. He played it in a tanky way, and so I wanted to kind of explore the other avenues. And I'll talk a bit more about that later. But that meant that kind of going into this scenario now in this kind of section, it wasn't a, hey, I'm going to go forward and tank. It was like, okay, well, I'm probably going to play a bit slower and try to do some damage.
So in the very first room, we're going to cover a monster spotlight, which is going to be on the Savas twins. Two mobs. One of them that I swear we've seen maybe 3 times total. I think it was the very first time was in the Ice Cave, and it was almost like a mini boss in there, and we learned that it could summon and that it played with elements and all that, and it was really interesting. And then later on, we saw them again in that scenario, that random side scenario that splits the whole dungeon down in half, and you have the elements on either side that was coinciding with the actual ice storm, and maybe another time after that. But that's usually how we've seen the ice storms. We've just never seen the lava flows. And because we did this at +1, we were rocking scenario level 5. That was basically what we were doing. So yeah, the ice storms, we're looking at like 15 to 20 health, depending on normal, elite. They've got their shields, which is 1 and 2 respectively, and they've also got innate pierce 3, which we don't see a lot of piercing units, but when we do, I personally take offense to them having it. I hate the fact that on items that you have, when you take damage, add shield to it, and when you're getting pierced, you still use those shields, which is a feels bad. I'm almost guaranteeing that people either aren't doing it, some people aren't doing that, or they're house ruling it because I don't want to use my shield if I know I'm going to get pierced, right? Yeah. But yeah, it's unfortunate. The 2 summon cards that they have are on 98, which a lot of the summon cards are later. That was one of the challenges, actually. Remember, guys? That was one of the challenge cards that came up as an option, which was reverse the initiative, which was going to mean that these guys would go first at initiative 2 and immediately summon stuff, which would be kind of busted. The ice storms consume frost and wind and infuse as well, for a lot of their abilities, and they make frost demons and wind demons, which from a summoning point of view, I'm comparing them to something like wave throwers who summon the eels. The 2 summon cards on the ice storms aren't their reset cards.
Okay.
Probably for the best.
Yeah, 100%.
Because they would not be in the bin or near the bin if that was the case. Because they're normal mobs when they summon them, and then with, you're getting a full, like, it's not even an eel with like 4 or 5 health. You're getting a wind demon which already comes with a bunch of shield and a lot of movement and their own, crazy deck. And then you've got a retaliating frost demon, which are also pretty scary, especially when you go higher in the levels. I think a normal at our level would have been a retaliate 3, which would always be gross to also deal with.
Yep.
And they've got one card which we learned, which was going to add to their shield, Frozen Shield, which adds 4 shield to their shield total, making it 6.
Yeah.
So they did this at one point in the first room. And it was the Ice Storm. It was the Ice Storm that decided to play this. It goes at, I think, a 14 or some really low number. And they get added 4 shield, which gave these ones 6. The elite that was in this room with 6 shield. There is an item, guys. There's an item that Mark brought with him. I actually have no idea when he got this or why he started to bring this with him. I don't think you could do more damage with this apart from maybe a Steel Automaton.
Yeah.
Hit maybe 7, but it's the 7 Claw During your turn, one adjacent normal or elite enemy suffers damage equal to their shield value. And when Mark popped this and did just flat 6 damage to this guy without even doing anything, it was amazing. It got to the point where every time we saw anything with a shield, we'd look at Mark and we'd start doing crap things like, if he said, no, I've already used it once. It's like, oh, come on, every single time. It got so much fun just to sit there and annoy him with the whole crab thing. But yeah, Severed Claw MVP item. I don't think I'll ever say that again. Because why?
Because he doesn't want to do that anymore.
Because he got sick of us?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Summoning monsters is generally a high priority unit. And these are no different. We've learned that from the wave throwers itself. And considering, like I said earlier, these don't have a reset summon, they aren't as bad as wave throwers, right? Because we tier listed wave throwers quite highly. And is that because of PTSD?
Yeah, 100% it is. If you're not on that one scenario where there's 6 of them and it's going to blow up if they summon too much, then it's probably not as much of a problem, right?
So if wave throwers are in 2.0 and every future Gloomhaven game, they're still going to be a priority 1 target because of this one scenario that happened.
Yeah, because we hate them because they ruined our life. And so therefore every wave thrower from now until the end of eternity needs to feel that pain. Like,
that's completely fair enough. What are your thoughts on the ice storms? Savasa ice storms.
Yeah, look, they seem fine. I think the thing is with them, I reckon that all of the times we've encountered them, and this is really no different, is they are too much of a focus. It's kind of similar to the Living Doom examples, right? We've only ever seen Living Dooms when we just need to stack on them, right? And there hasn't really been a lot of like chaff around to protect it or other threats. Now in this we had the lava flows, so that was kind of like a little bit more of a threat. But I don't know. I feel like unchecked, these things could be really dangerous because they do actually hit quite hard. They do generate elements, they do heals, and there's a whole bunch of different things that they do, which I reckon similar to like a priest or I don't know. I'm sure there's another monster I'm forgetting that. If they're allowed to just sit there and do their thing, then they will probably be really annoying.
Yeah.
I even think they have a disarm. I think like one of those that they kept not going off because they didn't have the right elements up. So maybe do they? Or am I thinking of the boss?
No. They definitely do.
Yeah.
They've got disarms. They've got the heals, like you said. They've got defensive things, and then of course summoning. Like they've actually got quite a few attacks for summon classes that make it relatively dangerous. They've got that push one. Disarm all within range 1, and then they've got the one that if they do a push 2, because we're a melee heavy lineup, so when we're next to them they do a push 2, and if wind is up it's a push 4 of everyone around, and then an attack +1 at range 5. Dumb stuff like that. They've got, if the elements are up, it's pretty bad, and the elements are up a lot because they make 2 different types of elements. And I also make those elements, which helps them because every time I go to make it, one of these idiots are always eating it. It does my head in.
So, yeah, look, I think we haven't seen them in bad situations, but I think maybe it's because they've been too highlighted as the boss kind of monster in a particular room. And so, therefore, they're there and there isn't much else around them. Whereas I feel like if we had this in a big room with lots of mobs and they were just running around doing their thing, it'd actually probably be quite gross.
I have a feeling this, and I'll connect it with lava flows as well. I'm a little disappointed that it's taken us this long to see the lava flow, but also it could just be the luck of the draw with the scenarios that we have picked. But I would like to have seen them a little bit more, and by that I mean not a room full of them because that's stupid, but one every now and then as just something to spice things up a little bit. I like the fact that they're an element generator as well, which always spices things up for players who synergize with it for good and bad. But also just the danger of the summon. You stick one of these in the back of a room just like a wave thrower and it becomes like, well, we have to clear this room, but someone needs to deal with that ASAP, which I like. I like the priority targets in the game, and it really makes you think. So Vast Lava Flow, they have more health. They have way more health. They have innate poison on their attacks, which I think, I don't know if this came up in the quiz or if this was something that I'd said, but yeah, one of the more common conditions that can be applied is either poison or wound, but these are another poison applier. And their elite counterpart is also applying wound as well as the poison, which is kind of rough that they're both doing it. They hit fairly hard. I think 4-5 at level 5, movement of 3-4. They don't have the shield or the retaliate like you mentioned, which is nice. They've just buffered it with a little bit more health. And they do summon again, but now on 97, they summoned Earth Demon and Flame Demons, which is probably the better combo if you had to deal with like Frost Demon or Wind Demon or Earth Demon and Flame Demon. Flame Demons have relatively low health, so if you've got some kind of pure damage, you could probably burst through it. And then Earth Demon, we've already established, are the biggest demons that exist.
Yeah, I think Earth and Flame are like opposite ends of the spectrum. I think that Earth, and Flame, I think are really dangerous. We've managed to deal with them, but I feel like in this party we would have struggled a little bit because we don't have a lot of pierce, and we also don't have a lot of pure damage. Whereas at the
We have a Bane crab.
Yeah, true, but that means they're at least having to stick around for a turn, and they can do, as in a smaller room, do a lot of damage. Whereas at the Frost Demon and the Wind Demon, I think are probably more in the middle. They're closer. They're not as bad. They're not as dangerous as the Flame, but they are still annoying to deal with because of the shield split and the retaliate. So yeah, it's probably a good split. If they're going to split them in a way, that's probably the right way to do it.
That's fair. I have a lot more problems with Wind Demons and Frost Demons because of the Snowflake Solo scenario, which they're both in there. So I will see them as the worst in any situation.
Yeah, and I think a lot of my Flame Demon fear actually comes out of Gloomhaven. Like trying to deal with them in Gloomhaven, there was scenarios that I remember playing where I was just like, this is like really rough.
Flame Demons Flame Demons in Gloomhaven was seen as like ridiculously not overtuned, but there were just not enough answers to dealing with them, and that they easily became some of the top. You see it in discussions. Where I think Dwarfs made a point that in Frosthaven there's more ways of dealing with it, which is why they're not seen as too big of a threat compared to Gloomhaven. But obviously your PTSD from that game is going to carry over.
Yeah, it's 100% right there, and we've talked about this. Like the amount of pure damage that's available in Frosthaven is heaps higher than it was in Gloomhaven. Well, it feels like it is. I don't know if that's actually legit, but it feels like it is. So those high shield, low health demons don't seem as much of a problem.
No.
So yeah, it's and also I think maybe even getting things like status effects on people might be easier. Like getting wounds onto monsters seems to happen more often than not. But then I don't know. That could just be
a lot lately.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, a Flame Demon with high shield, guys, it's all right. Yeah. We got that. One of the quizzes, the quiz that Kaliga wrote for us with the monster stats, Lava Flow came up a lot. And one of the questions actually was, what monster has the least number of ability cards with an attack on it? And true damage doesn't count. And it was Lava Flow with 4 cards. Only 4 of the cards of the Lava Flow attack.
Oh, really? Okay.
They've got the 2 summon cards. They've got another card that does the all enemies within range 4 suffer 2 damage. And then if fire is up, add wound to all that. Like wound everything within range 4. And if leaf is up, which, I mean, who makes leaf, right? But if leaf is up, disarm everything within range 4. Which is pretty gross. For any leaf makers out there, don't make earth. Otherwise, it's guaranteed to piss your party off. But that's one of the third card that doesn't do an attack. And then, of course, they've got a heal as well, which is the heal 4. I think they did this at the very beginning of the room. Yeah. The heal 4 and whatever damage Phil did at the very beginning, because there were 2 of them, they just healed that guy back up again. And if Earth is up, they get to add a target to that heal. So very quickly, they could just make that, with 2 of them, heal 16, which is pretty gross. The other question that came up was which monster have the biggest absolute change in health between commons and elites? There were 3 tie between Savast, Lava Flow, Chaos Demon, and Strike Fiends. They all increased their health by 10 going from common to elite. So that was the other time that they came up. So yeah, no, it was cool to get a bit more of a dive into it. So the Savast twins, we've done a spotlight, we've done a bit of explore. What are your thoughts on the twins as a whole?
Yeah, they're cool. I'd like to see them in more scenarios. I think they're interesting. They've got cards that make them challenging, but I think they need to not be isolated. We only seem to fight. I mean, we've never seen lava flows, but we only seem to fight them when they're the only thing on the map.
Do you like the fact that they were together this time?
Yeah, I think that was cool. Like that definitely was cool.
Like,
but
what's the priority then?
Yeah, well, I don't know. We didn't even know what flood was. So
that's so true. There was a discussion on Reddit 5 years ago where they actually put a spotlight onto the lava flow or the Ice Storm. I can't remember which one. And they were saying in Gloomhaven it was like one of their top priority kills because back, at least then, I think there's been a few changes. Back then they had ranged on the actual stat card, the monster stat card. So you could see all their attacks. If it just had an attack, it was always going to be, at a range kind of thing. And their range was like 6 at like a higher level. It was like 5-6, normal to elite. And they had Pierce still. And they were nuking really, really hard. So I think they've been pulled back a little bit.
Yeah, okay.
But they were seen as, like, for a lot of people in that conversation, like top tier scary.
Yep.
Which we didn't feel as much. Early tier list for the Lava Flow?
Probably in the middle.
Would you rate it higher or lower than the Ice Storm?
I can't remember what we rated them, but judging from their kit and just comparing their kit, I think that I probably rate them higher because I think they have more chance to do things. Like the thing with the Lice Flow, and without going too far into it, is that just, again, I still felt even in this one, there was a few turns that just didn't do anything. Like, and I don't know, that just didn't seem to happen with the Lava Flows. Like, we killed the Lava Flows pretty quickly. So, yeah. I don't know. I'd probably rate them a little bit higher than the Ice Flows.
Yeah, that's fair. I like that. I'd probably still go Ice Storm higher. But that's because characters I played.
Wind Demons.
Yeah, well, I didn't even think of that, but yes, there's that. And then there's the Ice Storm don't eat my grass.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is nice, among other things. So, yes, we did run this one twice. CC is the game. We're calling targets. We're getting a lot more coordinated, which is really, really good. And something else that I'm noticing is that elements galore, right? There are elements out there that, I mean, between the two that we've already covered, you've got lurkers in the second room. Once we've cleared the first room, we had lurkers in there, which play around with Earth, which is awesome. Again, I learned that I would create Earth only to then look at what they were doing and they were consuming it. Like every time. It was like very, very frustrating. And then, yeah, if they have a lot of shield, Mark can sniff them, apparently with it. And then, of course, he's got his Bane. The Claw Crushers were an interesting addition. We beat them as per normal that we didn't, but we have to factor in that at high difficulties, the innate add target to all their attacks with impair and a couple of other broken things means we had to play around that and play around, I think Mark on the kelp going invisible and just splitting up the damage so that they cleave as little as possible, which is something I highly recommend people do unless you want to take lots of hits to the face.
We did that well, like we did the previous scenario where we, when we were thinking about it, jumping on either side of them, of the pack so that they weren't able to, to maximize the damage in that case.
Yeah. And then, so it was a pretty uneventful room. We cleared that and then we go into the last room and we open it up and we are met with, what's his name?
Bob.
That's right, Bob. Bob the Collector. That sounds better. He can go with that. Just don't go the Collector. Bob the Collector. And an Ice Storm. And then on the board there's an A spot, there's a chest, there's 2 traps, and an obstacle. And, well, we have the Collector. So the Collector, for us, like you said, had around 152 health for 4 players. On our second playthrough, he had 114 for 3. So it does feel a little bit better, but then you realize that the Blink Blade's probably going to contribute at least half his health in damage. Yeah. So it was actually worse for us losing Phil.
Well, I think in the first turn of like actually pumping damage into the Collector, Phil probably did about 40 or 50 damage. Like he really just dropped everything into that thing, and so he did a lot. But yeah, based on that, we're like, 40 health less. That's probably still worse for us.
Yep. He's got 2, Boss Special 1 and Boss Special 2. Boss Special 1 is just a move, an attack. And then it's interesting because the stat card helps me understand it a lot more than the issue we ran into. But the actual stat card is if elements are up, right, it'll add things to the attack or it'll do things like shield or healing. So with Special 1, if he consumes fire, along with the attack that he's doing, he'll wound something. But if Frost is up, he'll also disarm something. And if Wind is up, probably the worst one, he'll add target to the actual hit, which is pretty gross. Don't make Wind, Eddie. Don't make Wind.
Yeah.
If Dark is up in the same attack, as a separate bit, he will curse everything within range 1. So that's Special 1. And then at the end of doing all that, he then creates Fire, Wind, Earth, and Light, which funnily enough coincide with Boss Special 2. because boss special 2 is another move and attack, but it also uses all those elements that were made if they're still up. And if fire's up, wound again. If air is up, +1 target. If grass is up, like earth is up, he'll do a heal, and it's based on how many characters. And if light is up, he'll shield himself. And then for boss special 2, once he's done that, he makes the same 4 elements that were for boss special 1. So lots of elements going up, especially that there's an ice storm in this room as well. And then you've got the special rules. The special rules of the room is every second round, you spawn a Savas lava flow on the A spot that we saw in the room. And all of a sudden, it's like, cool, we've got the same 2 mobs that we started in the first room with the ability to be endless, although standing limits do apply. And then we have the collector as well. And it becomes a bit of an element whack-a-mole, but ultimately a DPS race.
Yeah.
There's no phases.
Well, that's the thing, right? And it's probably going to go into spoilers about how we did it and what we did and what we didn't do, right? But like at the end of the day, like, I was just kind of not complaining, but I was talking about like we haven't really seen the ice flow, or the lava flow at all. But like in a space where there's lots of other mobs where they can really do their thing, and we have to, this was too far extreme the other way, where it was like there are so many of them and they're spawning so often, and those are spawning more things that we don't even bother killing them.
No.
Like the whole thing was we were never going to stay on top of everything that was there.
No.
And also try to deal 150 odd damage to the boss, who was doing some really nasty things himself.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of like just ignore them. And as you said, then it just becomes a pure DPS race of like burn the boss down, ignore everything else.
Yeah. Ultimately, yeah.
Which is, it's a shame for a different reason, because it means you're not really interacting with what's there. That's basically, you may as well just put a timer on at that stage and say you got to kill him in 5 rounds. Right? Like, I'm not really, and I'm not suggesting you do that, because there's a whole bunch of other things you can do about mitigating damage and CCing and things like that. But that's kind of when it comes to a boss, if you're just going to say so many things are going to spawn that you need to kill this guy quickly, then that's also not that fun.
Yeah. We haven't had a DPS race in a while. I was okay with it this time. And also I was really stressed because of the type of mobs that was. I don't know. If it was black imps that was spawning every round, etc., maybe I wouldn't feel as like that's still bad. I know it's still terrible, but it wouldn't be as, I don't know, exciting. I think it was just more that you've got summons upon summons. The thing is spawning things that can also spawn more things, and for some reason it's like, oh, how out of control can this get? Shall we see? No, let's kill that. But it was a different thing.
We'll get to it later, but I did not like this. But it's just one of the elements of like, it's seeing these monsters again and more of them, but almost too many in a scenario where we're not going to interact with them. It's kind of, we're just ignoring them and just trying to push through, which is the disappointing part. Because you're right, there weren't generic monsters like a type of imp or a skeleton or an archer or something. It wasn't just some generic monster. They're these like ice flows and lava flows, which we haven't seen much of, and we want to kind of have in the thing more. And now we're just like, oh, they're just there, and they're going to summon a bunch of shit. So,
and it was like, what do we do? So Mark's got Bane, obviously, but Bane on the boss is like cool. Every round or 2 rounds, we might be able to get 10 damage off, provided he doesn't do boss special 2, and I've put Earth up, or he's left Earth up to heal it off. So we've got that there. Phil's literally just narrowing on the boss. I'm trying to play a fun mini game of, can I eat that element before he does? And can I create an element that's not going to like F us? And then you're learning what does this button do? What does this button do? So it's a pretty chaotic last room. And look, it ended terribly because Phil unloads and then ends up in a weird spot where he like, you know how you run up to something, you go, yeah, and he stab. If you're a DPS or a rogue or something, you want to like then back out and then maybe go in and do it again. But he ended up stuck next to the boss, I think, and he ended up getting absolutely destroyed by a bunch of card draws that he had to pull 2 out of his discard to mitigate. And he exhausted. He went from, I mean, by that stage we had used a lot of cards, but yeah, he exhausted after doing a respectable like 50 or 60 damage or something to it.
Yeah, I think he went in with the idea, because we were all running pretty low on cards, except for maybe you. But I think he went with the idea of like, I'm just going to go really hard at the boss, and if everyone else does, and he exhausts, at least I'll have done half its life or something like that, and then hopefully you guys can clean the rest up. But unfortunately, he did a chunk. We couldn't do much, and then all the monsters in the room just exploded us.
They kept spawning as well. They'd summoned the elements. It was getting kind of messy, and we looked at each other. It was like, well, who's got the damage now? Now that Phil's out and he's dead, how are we going to burst this thing down the same way? And I didn't bring any attack cards, like barely any. Mark's baning things and doesn't do his power pot turn. And then you also, you could do damage. We've got it, but we just don't have enough.
No, not with the survivability. That's the thing.
No.
I think we had enough damage, but by that stage, again, which we knew was going to happen, you have the spawns, you have the summons, and some of them are doing multi-target attacks. I think the thing that ended up cleaning up Phil and most of us was we had 2 lava flows on there, and they both did do 4 damage to everything, right? So everyone just took heaps of damage, and it was just like, nah, this is cooked. We can't do it.
Completely cooked. So we unfortunately, we had to. We decided that we probably didn't have enough damage, and we'll probably remake it. And before we did, we grabbed the treasure chest, which was a very, very surprisingly amazing item that I knew existed but didn't know where it came from. And they're opulent shoes, which I think works for any summon character. It says at the start of the scenario, consider yourself to be before your summons in initiative order when determining monster focusing for the remainder of the scenario, which is humongous for playing with the sword. I've currently been running around with those pants that I take off to then take a hit for one of you guys. But this is going one extra bit further for me personally, not so much for you guys anymore, but for keeping the swords alive, which I'm very excited to give a go to try out. And then we reset the scenario. We said goodbye to Phil. We gave him our decks, AMD decks. We just said, can you please give these a shuffle? And then we reset up the scenario for 3 people, and we went again. And to see the actual differences, we had 1 less monster in the first room, and I think 1 less crab in the second room, just basing it loosely off my memory. But it already felt easier and harder at the same time because we now don't have our crazy burst damage potential with Phil, but there's less threats on the board. So it was interesting. But we also now have seen how the whole scenario works. You've also seen how the drill kind of feels a little bit and made any adjustments if you need to.
Yeah, I made some, yeah.
I did the same. I removed half my deck and brought in a bunch more attacks so that I can contribute to the damage. And Mark still had his thing. So we knew that we, if anything, had popped shields, which they did, and he clawed it again. Same move. What an idiot. What a noob.
You're right though. It was a combination of we kind of knew what was going to come out, and it was slightly reduced in regards to what was there, but I mean we're missing a blink blade and Phil, so there's a big chunk of damage as it is. Interestingly enough though, it's still a boss with a bunch of health. The challenge was, this is where knowing what's there helps you, but it doesn't solve it for you, right? In that we still have to deal 100 odd damage to this thing and deal with a room of things that are going to summon and overwhelm us. Knowing that that's going to happen doesn't, it does change how we go about it, but it doesn't, go like, oh, it's all right, well, we just go this way instead.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we clear the first room, we clear the second room. Yeah, just as per normal, nothing really different in that. But then what happened?
Well, Mark suggested, because we were just into the doorway of the second room.
Yeah.
And they're not big rooms, but they're kind of medium-sized rooms. And Mark's like, why don't I open the door? Because he's basically permanently invisible. Why don't I open the door and kind of lure the boss in, right? Open the door and let the boss run in.
And the thing is, 5.
Yeah, the boss 1 and special 1 and 2 were both move 5 or 6s. So he generally, from what we had seen, was going to outmove the ice flows and the lava flows, who didn't really seem to move all that much.
Yeah.
Especially if they're summoning, right? Then they're not moving at all. And so there's this kind of hopefully with some good draws, we can just lure the boss into the second room, and that buys us a few rounds of not having to worry about the lava flows and ice flows, which we had decided at this point we were ignoring them anyway. That was just we can't kill them, we can't get on top of them, so let's just try to burn the boss down.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and that's kind of what we did. Yeah. We sat there, Mark sat in the doorway and was invisible, which actually messed up their movement a little bit, which was good, just because they couldn't move that one into the doorway. They had to have enough to move over him.
Yeah.
They summoned a bunch of things. He managed to throw some really good stuns out when they were summoning. So the ones that were getting closer, he was able to stun, which meant they weren't summoning, which was, again, that buys you another turn. So there was a kind of some really good use of CC from him kind of standing invisible on the front line, just kind of being really annoying.
Yeah. The clutch AMD from the Kelp as well has some, like, he's got some disarms in there, which is so amazing. I don't know if he's got a stun or if you had it, or I think it might be him actually. But
he does.
Yeah, just those moments where he's like, oh, damn it, I can't stun that thing. Or I may as well hit it. Bang. Oh, look, it's a stun.
Look,
like,
it's got stunned. Yeah.
Yeah. It was
the
very,
clutch
very,
invis
very clutch.
as well work really well.
Oh,
for
yeah,
him.
that's right.
Yeah,
like he's got to cop it absolutely.
I hit this thing. Oh, I'm invis now. Oh, that solves all of my problems. Oh, and it also means I get advantage on my next attack. So yeah, I can stun the guy now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was good stuff. Brought them in. We basically started bursting on the boss. The lava flows were coming in and they started pulling that bloody range 4 to everyone takes 2 damage kind of thing. And they were coming in. There was a period of time that we were doing some good steady damage, but there was a bit of a Hodor kind of moment as everything started pouring into the room. And it was kind of like the things on like 20 health or something, and every bit of damage counts, which was really, really important. I just going back to the first room with my very first attack, which was the nice big attack that I had set up with elements, and I was hitting for 7, and then the first card on my AMD was a crit. It was wonderful.
Why was it a crit?
Oh, because Phil's got the magic hands, man.
He does have
Phil's got the magic hands.
So those people would be aware that I have the opposite of Phil luck, and that I generally 1 in 3 times shuffle my mist to the top of my deck somehow.
Yeah.
And so you definitely know that I'm not cheating, because my AMD is so shit all the time, regardless of which character I'm playing, right? And
you could be cheating for sympathy, guys.
Pardon?
You could be cheating for sympathy, guys.
I could be cheating, yeah, but I'm not, right? I would rather do big numbers. So I also got Phil to shuffle my deck, and the idea was, is his ultra good luck enough to balance out my bad luck, right? Yeah. And so on the first, I think it was the second turn actually, I also was doing a big hit because I'm with the drill. I'm using the I can't remember what it's called. I think it's called processing, where I get to play 3 cards the next turn. So I was doing a big range of hits. And one of the pots that I got was the muscle pot to give myself advantage, because I need advantage so that when I 98% of the time draw my miss, it doesn't miss.
Yeah.
So I did that. And the first card I drew was I don't know, +1 or something like that, which is good. And the second card was a miss. And I'm like, are you serious? So we've even determined that Phil's ultra luck is only enough to move the null 1 space.
Yeah.
It moves it 1 space back. So that's
when 2 opposite forces combine, it's sometimes it's interesting to see what the outcome will be. And at least now you always permanently need strengthen.
I do, just 100% of the time. That's why it was so good with the shards, that I never remembered to look at the top card of my deck. So but no, it was an interesting kind of end of the scenario, because it kind of started to ramp a bit. Mark got a few Banes out. There was a little puzzle we needed to solve, collectively, about boss special 2 goes really early. It has the heal on it, so if the grass is up, then he will heal. So there was kind of this situation of, if Mark was going to bane him, he needed to make sure that he wasn't baning him into a turn where where grass was up, because if he drew that, we couldn't do anything about it. So there was those little things, but that's a massive amount of damage that we lose out. So it was good. It was good though, and we managed to do it.
We managed to do it. Do you think at the state we were in towards the end of the scenario, if it lasted another round or 2, what would have happened?
Well, we ran away, so
we were almost in the first room by this point.
Yeah, by that stage, yeah, exactly. Because I think the other pet we had was Ricewind, which you mentioned before, which again we didn't use. But we got to the start of a turn where we're like, okay, this guy's going to die really soon, and we did some attacks on him. And then we were like, oh, wait, we can use Ricewind now, and then we can all just retreat a bit. Yeah. And we managed to get away where we got hit a tiny bit rather than getting absolutely nuked. Because by that stage, a majority of the monsters had made their way into or were within range of that second room. Yeah. And so there was a lot of pain kind of happening there. But yeah, we totally could have lasted 2 more rounds if we ran further away.
I did bring Sophia out, which is my level 8 sword, which was pretty cool, and prove that she still only gets +1s as a minimum on monster AMD. As I think it's got 6 health or 8 health. This is without the infusion that increases that further, and she's still running around with 1 shield, and it does not matter.
Yeah.
Every time without fail, it's just it hits your sword and +1, mostly crit, but +1. So yeah, it's just something I've learned that it's built into the character. I'm not too sure why it hasn't been written on the character map that this sword is very risky in that it is guaranteed to pull good modifiers from the deck. But no, we did win. It was pretty awesome to actually see us complete like a mini chain. And we got a big juicy reward, guys. It was about time. Ooh, what was that face? We got not 1, but 2 morale, guys. 2 morale. And you're like, oh, lol, nice and funny. Yeah, what else? And I'm like, no, that's it. That's it. But I got a new pair of shoes that I might wear for 1 scenario before I retire, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, cool.
What were your
I just
thoughts
think on the scenario, on the reward.
Let's go with the reward into the scenario, guys.
Yeah, I think everybody knows how I feel about this. I don't mind morale as a reward, but at the end of a chain of 2, and I know it's only a chain of 2, but like you can probably put something a little bit more interesting in there. Like, at least throw a couple of accents at us, right?
We got inspiration in the first one.
Yeah, equally as useless. So no, I don't know. I don't know how the reward system is worked out for the side scenarios and the guest designers. I don't know if they're given I imagine that the guest designers aren't picking the rewards because that's not really a balanced thing for the scenario. That's probably more like they tack it on at the end to balance overall. If you're completing these things, this is what you'll end up with. So I guess that makes sense. It's just interesting comparing, like, say, Prison Break, which was like the 4 or 5 scenarios we did on that long chain, which was really cool. Lots of rewards for that. Like, it felt epic. It felt like it was this really important chain that was building as we went on, and the rewards got bigger and bigger as we went. And that's where this just didn't seem like an inspiration and then 2 morale. Just seems like spin the wheel and see what generic kind of rewards you get. So I don't know. Anyway, at this stage, it doesn't really matter because we have everything we need anyway. But it was still just like, lol, okay.
Yeah.
I thought the meme is real, right?
Yeah, go from inspiration to this, like you said, it feels like it's been a while since we've had XP in because we're rolling characters. I mean, Mark and I would have been a little bit pissed if it was an XP reward because we're both level 9, but, those kind of things wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of extra XP to get some of those other characters up. What were your thoughts on the scenario?
I think it was fine. For a boss scenario, it was, like, probably better than some, not as interesting as others. I don't think the mechanics were all that overly exciting. Like, they didn't do much for the scenario. Although I did quite like the way that the boss specials worked. Like, it was super clunky at the start because there's so much text, but like once you see it a few times and internalize it, right? And then you realize that, fire is always wound, like wind is always extra target. So it's really only the other 2 elements that change, and the move and attack is also, so it's once you get that and you have it there in front of you, because I think you were using the app and I was using the book just to double check those things, which is kind of like that piece that people complain about from Frosthaven's too complex, right? It's too much bloat. It is, in the sense that you have to, for the first few rounds of that being drawn, you have to keep going back to the rulebook to check. But, like, by the end, we were pretty good with it. We were still checking, but it was very quick. So I think I liked that. I thought it was a cool way. And, I mean, honestly, if it's digitally implemented without having to look it up, like, then that's all, that kind of stuff's all handled by the computer anyway. And then that becomes, like, a really cool mechanic because it mixes up what he does every turn.
Yeah. I like the elemental usage from the mob types in here as well as the collector. It makes sense. It makes it way more scary. That element's going to be up. And then, of course, the minute you incorporate elements into monster and also boss, but tied to the players as well, depending on what lineup you're going with, it definitely makes it spicy and interesting because you're either going to power up your teammates, which is really exciting, or you're going to power up the enemy. So it becomes its own little mini game, which I love and appreciate. I do worry, though, that it could be a timing thing, but I think we've got this scenario at a good time where this scenario as a whole is fine. It's good. It's fine. But if we had encountered this a couple months back with maybe an older lineup, being a DPS race, you know, it may not have lasted as long as it did, and it may have been easier, and we may have just met our way at the end of it even more so than, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, even 5 weeks ago, right before Mark respect out of Bane into Bane Calb, like when we had a lower Blink Blade, but we also had kind of Mark who was like real powerful. I don't think that this is much of a challenge, like, because we get in there and he can pretty much just sit there being invisible the whole time and just kill him. Like, you know, Phil deleted 40 odd health of the boss in 1 round. Okay, we've seen what Mark could do with a power pot and like in 1 round as well, like much the same on single target with no shields. So yeah, you're 100% right. Like there are combinations that you're going to get that's going to make this boss really trivial. And that was kind of my point at the start of like, I hope that if we've got a boss that it's going to have health phasing so that you don't have that chance to do that. And I almost wonder, and maybe this adds too much complexity and bloat, right? Again, down that path. But like, if the summons should have been tied to stages of the health so that you had a chance to manage it, like, I don't know, at each 25% of its health, then you get a summon of that type in that area. Because then you kind of have a choice. I like the idea that the agency's with you, whether you want to just burst him down, right? Or do you want to deal with what you've got and then clear the room and then kill and then burst him down to get him down to the next threshold and then deal with that? Like, you have that option. Whereas the way it was framed, there really wasn't an option. I don't see any world where you're killing everything, right? Like it just doesn't make sense to.
No, I think it's a good observation, actually. The idea of having extra priorities. I mean, if you phase it like the way you've just said it, then it means that, I mean, you know that one of your characters is potentially going to burst it enough to hit that phasing, or 2 people anyway, but it gives other people something, I don't know, more exciting to do from I could just put my 5 or 4 damage or whatever mediocre into the boss, or I could play CC that the boss which is immune to on the added targets, and, you know, yeah.
So, but yeah, look, overall, I had fun playing it. I don't know how much of that because I was on a new character. I could have been a part of it, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah. Okay. Mark's thoughts were, he said, it always feels bad killing other crabs. Why can't we all just get along? This chain has felt a bit harder than most. I know we are playing at plus X now, but I think this is the first time I've felt like we needed to focus the boss down and almost ignore the ads. We have done that in other scenarios where we focus to end, but this one I felt that in order to end, we needed to focus. I
get what he's saying. Like, in the others, we did that. Yeah, like in the other ones where we've burned a boss down, we've done it because we're like, well, let's just do it. That makes sense, right? There's no reason to kill the other 10 mobs in here. Let's just do that. But in this one, it felt like we had to do that because we were not going to complete the scenario. I think that's what he's saying.
Yeah,
because both options when we tried, both when we had 4 and 3 in the room, was like, we just get this guy ASAP because we're going to lose in like 4 rounds. Right? Whereas thinking about the other crab boss we did where, you know, I think Phil killed it in like 3 rounds, right? But that was more of everyone else just do whatever you want because it doesn't matter because he's just going to go kill the boss, right? That's how we complete this one. Just go right-click that guy for a while.
Yeah, well said, Gaz.
Well, what Mark said.
He said the first one was a bit messy. The second was a real team effort with clutch plays and problem solving. Wonder if we could have just given the collector a power source and he would chill out.
Oh, let's just be like, hey, dude, like, we don't have to fight you. Just have this, like...
Oh, because he's collecting.
Bag of Skittles. And like, hey, this will keep you going for a while.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Is it a normie scenario?
Maybe. I think the flows might be an issue, but I feel like if you could clear through, it'd be okay. But if Ormi made it to the last room, then he's cooked.
I think he's cooked in the last room as well.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't know how to retreat.
No, he doesn't.
And if we pull, for some odd reason, like, that also means that if he gets in the wrong position, we can't pull the boss back either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it just becomes, Ormi, what are you doing? Ormi, okay, we'll just wait for Ormi to finish. Unfortunate. So let's move on to your drill. How are you finding it? What was your initial impressions just from feeling it out and playing with the hard, not hard meter?
Yeah, look, a lot of fun so far. It's pretty different to a lot of other characters I've played. The only other one that I've played that has a resource on the board was the shards, but that was more of a you get one at the end of the round and it's like a spender thing. Whereas because this is a scale between like the four categories of pressure, and it's all you don't really have options, so you can't play a card and be like, oh well, I'm whatever yellow pressure is, but I'm not going to trigger that thing, right? Because your choice of what you want to do is in your card selection, not on whether you want to trigger the ability or not. Which with shards you do. You're like, I just don't want to spend it this time, or I can't spend it, or I will spend it, right? So I haven't really played something like this before, and it's a different puzzle because I think for probably since I played the Geminate, really, it's the most turns in advance that I've been playing. So I was choosing my cards on the basis that my next cards were going to be these, and they were pretty much locked in. So that's like, and because I'm playing this card called Processing, which I'm trying to make work, is basically you play it, it's a top action, and then on your next turn, you play 3 cards. That's not the exact wording, but that's essentially how it plays. So I'm playing these turns of like, doing 2 cards, one of them being processing, and then the next turn having to play these 3 and kind of trying to maximize the damage that way.
Whilst also making sure your pressure's in the right spot.
That's the extra part, right? It's not just play 2 cards, then play 3 cards, right? Or it's not play 2 cards and then spend these resources that you've been collecting to do something really good. It's having to make sure that, when you attack, your pressure goes down. Is that going to make it drop too much so that the second attack you're doing that turn now doesn't get any bonus?
Yeah, okay.
Because there's some that you want it to be up the top. There's some you don't want it to be. There's these really weird limbo space that I found, which I've kind of in the second run, I found a way around where you can get stuck in green. So there's 4. There's like the lowest, then there's green, yellow, and I think it's like blue, green, yellow, red from top to bottom. And there's plenty of stuff that wants you to be at the bottom at blue, right? Because then you can boost yourself up and get some pretty cool things. There's most attacks will get a bonus if you're at yellow or red. But green seems to be the one that you can get in this limbo space where nothing really wants you to be there. So therefore, you can't get pluses or negatives. So you got to play things that just increase or decrease. So there is that little bit of a puzzle element as well, which I quite like.
Yeah.
So it's been it was fun. I changed some of my cards over from the first run to the second run specifically because I noticed that I was I think I was generating elements and not using them.
Gotcha.
So I think I just put elements aside for now because I'm like I don't think there's a really good use for me at the moment. And I really enjoyed it. The second half of our second run was a bit weird though because we were just burning and that meant I wasn't really setting myself up. So I was just really trying to play as higher attack cards as I could each turn without going like through the like kind of the waxing and waning cycle that I was really playing around. And having such a low hand size because it has 9 cards.
Oh, really?
And one of the cards I'm playing is the memory something or other, which basically allows you to draw a card, discard, or if you align or you jump through enough hoops, you can get 2 cards back. So the idea that I was trying to do was kind of loop that. So you kind of on this constant getting cards back. But because we just like do maximum damage every turn, I really didn't have a turn to not attack.
Yeah, okay.
So that kind of messed with me a little bit there as well. So it was fun, and I got to see a whole bunch of different aspects to it, and I'm looking forward to having another crack at it.
Yeah, you look like you were having fun with it, and even in those moments where we're picking our cards and initiative, you can see the brain ticking because you're sitting there trying to work out how best to use that. I like seeing that again because on the shards, I don't think it existed. So.
It was more like, can you brittle this guy so I can do damage, right? To be honest. So yeah, it is fun as well. And I don't feel like it's it's kind of in that realm for me at the moment where I'm like, I'm trying to maximize my damage, but also enable. It's kind of like what I didn't get with the Geminate a bit in that I feel like I'm going to get really rewarded for jumping through these hoops in the right order. Because like, and I had a few turns that actually did quite a lot of damage. But But the flip side is if you don't jump through them right, you might just not do anything. So it is a weird kind of balance of like it's a risk reward in a sense like that. I think the way that I'm playing it anyway. I think you could probably play it a little bit more passive, where it's really just a kind of keep your heat up, right? Like raise it up, do an attack, drop it back down. Raise your heat up, drop it, do an attack back down. But I'm trying to add a little bit more in that combo sense to it. So yeah, we'll know in a couple of weeks whether the route I've gone is stupid or not. But I'm keen to explore it for myself.
I'm just looking at the back of the character mat and just saying, does it have a lot of different playstyles? Like, obviously, it will have a few different playstyles, but is there like a supporting playstyle, or is it like that? It doesn't really know.
Melee attack is high, range attack is 0.
Yes,
I haven't seen this, by the way, so I'm going to guess.
Okay.
What's the next category?
Mobility.
I'd say mobility is probably medium.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is the next
Support.
one control? Oh, support. I'd say support is like very low, if not like, I know it does have a little bit of heal, so I'm going to say like a 1 or a 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And then
Defense.
control, I'll also say is probably about maybe slightly higher than support, because it does a lot of tanky stuff and retaliate.
That's true. Yeah.
What is that right?
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah.
Like that's literally it.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, yeah, but no, it seems fun. It's if nothing else so far, it's a really cool design. Like, I don't know if it works yet, and I think from what I've heard it does, and I'm seeing kind of the way it flows, but I think it's a really cool design for a character mechanic. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with it. And yeah, we'll sing your praises next week when you discover it's like top DPS and out damages kelp and like stab crap kelp and blink blade and all that. Speaking of DPS, Gaz, you finished on 69. I finished on 73. I finished on 73 and Mark finished on 74. Really, really even. Like ridiculously even. A nice, really even spread. Damage taken, Mark took 18, I took 25, you took 26. And then this is where, because our DPS person had left and we had some other guy tracking our DPS. And this is where it's like, I think it's the healing. I think the healing part's the part that you just stopped recording. But I had healed 4, which is a bit weird. You healed 6 and Mark healed 8.
Yeah, I probably stuffed that one up. I did start, like, there is a plus or a caveat or an asterisk next to the damage because I was messing up the columns for a little bit, but I think I had it down pat by the end.
So it may not be as even as we think it's, because I don't think I do that much. So
I think it's mostly fine. No, you did heaps though. You did a lot of damage in that one, especially towards the end. So you were hitting.
The sword was helping when it was still alive.
Yeah.
Let's just jump to our item thing while we still have some time. So last week we did our items. Gaz and I picked 3 of our favorites, even if we haven't used them or we've never used them or we don't even have access to them. We just went into the card database and actually filtered them by helms and actually just picked 3 that we really like the design of, or we just favoriting. And then we're doing the opposite for 3 that we just think are a waste of space, despite probably people telling us, oh my God, spike collar. No, man, it's the most broken thing ever.
Yeah.
And this time we're doing it with chess pieces. So would you like to start or would you like me to go first?
Yeah, I will. I'm going to start with what I found to be my most surprising MVP chess piece. And I almost took it.
Can I
almost took it. I think you can guess it, yeah.
Oh, was that a chess piece?
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah, so the magnetic cape. So I got this by accident on my shards from opening a random chest, right? And I didn't have any items at that stage because it was like my first scenario. And then I just kept it the entire length of the thing. And I feel like every single scenario, if it wasn't just useful, right? Like, oh, hey, this is a good way of just moving across here and saving me a card. It was clutch to winning the scenario.
Like, I'm pretty sure the first scenario you found it was clutch. Like,
yeah, it was crazy. I think at least 3 of them, which has enabled us to win it, right? Or at least for me to massively do. So when I was putting my
what does it do?
Oh, sorry. It's that's a really good question. Basically, you can teleport next to an ally. So you can teleport. I'm going to bring up the thing here and pretend that I wrote down why I liked it. I just didn't write down the.
That's okay. It's because it's got range on it, right? Like a crazy amount of range.
Yeah. So here it is. So during your turn, perform teleport 20. right? Okay. And we know as well, I mean, very interesting if we got this right at the start, but after Mark playing the Kelp, who teleports around a lot, became a lot more aware of teleporting through empty space rooms.
Yeah.
So this basically just says go anywhere on the map, right? The exception is the teleport must end in a hex adjacent to one of your allies, right?
Yeah.
So you can't just pick somewhere and go there. You do have to teleport to someone.
Yeah.
But what that meant in scenarios at least was it was very much like I could go push a button over here and then just like teleport back over to people, right? Or there were some instances where someone, escape one, I think there was, where someone just burnt it to the end. And I'm like, I'll just teleport next to you.
Yeah.
So I didn't have to worry.
You kind of sit with me while someone else is doing all that. And then I already have decent movement. So I'm like, okay, you can go now. And then you blink to the end. Like, it was just, otherwise you would have to then go through, the normal channels of getting there. It has just become amazing.
And the thing is as well, with Mark being on the Kelp and being invisible most of the time, it also meant that we kind of had it's almost like the, I don't know what they call them, but you remember the ghosts from StarCraft that do like the laser to the nukes? So you're invisible guy. Yeah, that's kind of what it was. It's like send out the marker, like the Kelp was the marker, and just go to somewhere and then I can just appear next to them. And it's like, kind of perfect targeting.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that worked really, really well. And I almost took it on my drill when I was going through because it cost 40 gold, right? So in my starter gold, I was like, ooh, that's really spicy. Like I found it so useful. But because I knew I was actually going to get attacked, I went with a different route. But yeah, that was mine. I thought that was awesome.
No, it's a good choice. Good choice. I'm going tried and true and boring, but it's also one that we never ended up making or using due to some admin stuff probably from my end. But this was, and I don't have the items here, the numbers on me, so I'm going to have to dig that up. Oh, no, I do. It's right.
Oh, sorry, the magnetic cape was 174 for those playing at home.
Awesome.
So, which one?
Awesome. The one I picked was the Cloak of Many Pockets, item 60, which goes without saying. It's like, at the start of the scenario, you can bring up to 2 additional bag items. And in a world where everyone wants stam pots and heal pots and power pots, as well as any other bag items, because that must be the biggest, or it has to be, based on the rules that as you increase in level, you can carry more. It's the biggest pool of items, which is going to be why when we get to that, I don't know if we have to do it 3 or 5 or something, because of how many there are. But this allows you to carry more than your limit, which is really good. I like the idea of this, and I would love to have brought this, because I think bag items are one of those things that as we collect them, or unlock them, we're like, oh, can I bring that? Oh, I'm at capacity. Offers no real defensive properties, but I think it makes up for it by 2 extra items that can be absolutely clutch in the right position, especially if you're planning around it, is pretty cool.
Yeah, I 100% was going to build that, or maybe the cheaper version on my shards until I got the magnetic cloak of awesomeness, right? And I was like, I don't want to get rid of this. This just seems to keep winning, so...
Yeah, no.
So the next one I had on here is the Ghost Cloak, which we didn't really know about until
I still don't know about
playing. Oh, don't you? Okay, so this is Mark's one. During your turn, suffered 3 damage to perform invisible self.
Okay, yeah.
So it's item number 37. You have to make it from a bunch of other things. So I don't know, we must have got this late, or I don't know when we got it. But what I like about this is super simple, right? But it's like there's one in Gloomhaven, which is just go invisible, the invisibility cloak. And it was a really good item. Because
was that refreshable?
No, it was one use. I believe it's 1 use. It would be busted if it was. Maybe it was refreshable.
I just feel like everyone was talking about how, you need stam pot, you need a power pot, and you need an invisibility cloak.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, does that make it?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was, but if it was, then it's even better. But I just love the simple design on this where it's got a slight negative. Like 3 damage, it's not nothing. It's not too much where you don't want to do it, but it can just be enough to have to pay a cost. And having invisibility kind of at will once per scenario can be really, really important, especially when your character is attacking with advantage anytime that you've got invisibility. That makes it better. But just the turn of doing it on a turn where you go fast, right? And you do it in that turn, and then long resting or going late next turn. It's just I'll take 3 damage, just basically not have to worry about anything for 2 turns.
Correct. And not have to reposition or move or run away. I can stay at the front and plan around being where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good item, actually. Mark's used it really, really well, especially for a character that does go invisible and gets a perk from it. But there are times where he doesn't. So this is the backup option,
Yeah.
which is really, really come in clutch as well. I mean, it came in clutch this time as well in
Yeah,
this particular
definitely.
scenario. So no, I like that one. I'm surprised that we haven't overlapped on anything yet, which is pretty interesting. Hold that thought. So item 173, I got the multicolored cloak, and don't think we've seen this. I don't think anyone's built it or crafted it, but I have seen it in the list, and I'm like, interesting. It's tappable, so it comes back, and it's whenever you're attacked, you can create an element, right? So you just get when attacked, create an element, turn the card. And what I liked about this though was that if you get attacked early before your turn, you can use the element that you've just chosen, which I think is very cool. It's a way of it's very unique. A lot of the chess pieces are, they offer a lot of defensive properties and all of that with shield and disadvantage and all that kind of stuff. But something like this, I think, and I'm thinking about the Astral, could be very clutch, is getting attacked, getting the element, and then you get to refresh this every rest cycle or long rest cycle, as being another way of getting an element that you can use in the same round or setting something up for someone else, which I think is pretty cool. Unfortunately, the risk of getting hit, but don't get hit hard.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is really cool. I hadn't thought of that because it's also getting hit at the end of your turn, like you've had your turn and then they go and they hit you to plan your turn for next turn.
Yep.
Like, hey, cool, I'm going to create this element so I can use it next turn. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is cool. The last one I had was the Armor of Empathy. So this is item 224. After the next 3 attacks targeting you, flip this card over. All right, so you get hit 3 times and it flips. And then it says, during your turn, perform heal 3, 1 ally, range 3, and bless. And then you flip it over again. So basically, every 3 times you get attacked, right, you then get to heal someone, an ally, so not yourself, and bless them. And we haven't seen this one. Again, this is one we haven't really used, but it's a cool one that I would like to build around in some capacity. Like just with a tanky character that was getting attacked all the time.
Yeah.
Like if I think about back to my crab days where I was probably getting attacked 2 or 3 times around, I feel like this has the opportunity, because it's not a tap, it's a flip, right? There's a chance that you could probably trigger this quite often. The only thing with that though is if I'm the one getting attacked, I don't really know if I need to heal other people, right? So it might be the case then of just pumping blesses into people's decks.
Yeah.
Because I think when I was playing the crab, maybe Phil was on the media or whatever it was. But like that could be another way of just like increasing the amount of like kind of power from other people, or just using it to get rid of things like wound and poison can be handy.
What chess piece did you have on the crab?
I think I just had the disadvantage one. Like when you're attacked.
So it wasn't even like you were using it to get crazy amount of extra shield, etc. You obviously had enough to warrant being targeted by many things, and obviously organize your retaliate turn. So even something like this would have really worked.
Yeah, I think it was the crude hide armor, and that might have actually been one of my points with the items. Is that because you get the ignore -1s, you don't need to upgrade it. So it becomes pointless having that. But yeah, I mean, we didn't have things like the plate mail when I was playing the crab, which just gives you 1 more shield for 5 attacks, which meant I would have had 3 shield all the time, which sounds absolutely ridiculous. So I don't know if I take an Arm of Empathy because like, hey, why not just have 3 shield? But yeah, it's an interesting one. So it kind of goes into, I'll talk about this more with after we do the ones we didn't like, because I kind of have a little small snippet of a view on some of the items and why I don't like them, and how I think that especially the chess pieces could be made a little bit more interesting. And this ties into it a little bit, but yeah.
Yeah, cool. My last one for the ones that I really like, Warden's Robes. So this is item 122. So this is when one of your summons suffers damage from an attack. That summon gains 2 shield for the attack. Again, it's a chess piece that's tappable, and it's more recency bias, but this may keep my sword alive just a little bit longer than it has been. Yeah, really straightforward for keeping a valuable pet alive. And that is the only reason that I can, it's literally, I wouldn't have given this a second thought until maybe the last month or 2 since Astraling around as an item that I think is very cool and very important, especially considering most summons are going to be burns or losses.
I think because I had the Mantle of Summoning, which is 140.
Oh yeah,
On my prism, which
Yeah.
for the same reason, which is during your turn, grant one of your summons 2 shield, right? And the reason that I took that over the robes, because they're both the chest piece shield items, is that I went early a lot. So I was generally able to go before the monsters, which meant that I can chuck that onto one of mine. And if they're going to get attacked 3 or 4 times, you get like good value out of the shield.
Completely.
But like, yeah, if you don't have the chance to go early all the time, the Warden's robes seem like a lot better option for, hey, I'm just going to bail my critter out from getting like absolutely wrecked.
Yep.
So
No, I love it. Just on that note, I might start with the bad.
Mm-hmm.
I had Mantle of Summoning out of 140, which in my head at the time when I was writing this up, which was about a week or 2 ago, it said it feels worse than Wardens because one of them is reactionary and the other one is planning. And I don't like planning. I like reactionary. So
that's fair.
if it hits me. But yes, you're right. I also, since then, have updated my list. I've left it there as that was my initial reasoning, forgetting, and you just covered the point that I'd written down afterwards, which is why it's giving them 2 shield for the round for multiple attacks, which I can definitely see is probably a good thing. But I prefer reacting. And if something's going to hit in the sword, I can then go, oh, well, it's going to do this instead of, obviously, during my turn, provided I go early, actually calling it out and saying, oh, I can see they're all going to hit my sword. So then, I will cast the Mantle of Summoning. So, yeah, look, bit of a weird choice in my bin one, but
no,
sure.
It makes a lot of sense. Like, again, I'm only looking through the Mantle of Summoning through the lens of the Prism, which I had like 2 cards that were sub 15, a whole bunch of cards that were in the 20s, and I also had speed boots. Plus my rest on my rest thing, you can alter your initiative. So there was I was only going late, really, if I chose to. So it really wasn't an issue of things getting booked when I didn't think they were going to. Whereas that most other characters have summons don't have that reliability to go really early all the time and go like, it's okay because I'll just go before everything and give them the shield. So yeah, 100% I can see. And especially with your Astral, your summons are all eggs in one basket summons. Like the Prism, I've got 4 or 5. So it's not as important for me to keep one alive, right, and react to that. It's like, oh, well, it died, and then I had a whole bunch of ways to get it back anyway.
That's true.
So it was more of a like, I'm gonna get this one thing to tank 4 attacks rather than, oh shit, I need to save my summon.
Yeah, I mean, Cassandra she's resummonable. It's just, and a lot of people tell me that they're just like, oh, the good thing is you can just summon it again. I'm like, yeah, but I don't want to.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
So.
I'm lazy.
All right. So my first one on my didn't like was shell armor. Where are we? I wonder if we're going to overlap here.
Shell armor.
Shell armor. Which I can't find. Oh, there it is. Number 32. It says.
Oh yeah.
During your turn, perform ward self tappable.
Oh, that's exciting.
Right. So I think it just seems really boring and very hard to make it work properly. Like, in order to make the ward useful, right, you need to know you're about to get hit, right? And if you know that you're going to get hit, then you're making the choice to go next to or within range of the thing that's going to hit you. And even then, having disadvantage is probably almost arguably better anyway. Like, I mean, disadvantage is probably on average going to reduce the attack by like 1, so it's not better than halving. But that means that you need to be hit for like 5 or 6 to warrant like it being overall better than just having disadvantage multiple times. So yeah, I don't. It just seemed and then there's a bit of a theme through some of these with what I think with some of these items makes them lackluster. But yeah, this was one of those. It just seems like it's too much to make useful. And if it was reactionary, I think then it would be really cool. Tap to give yourself ward, right, as an action, not during your turn. I think then it's really cool, right? Because instead of being 1 shield 5 times or disadvantage on the attack, you can use it for that big attack that you get hit. You don't negate it, but you get to negate half of it. So it becomes a oh shit button rather than just I have to pre-plan it.
Yeah. The only thing I can see of this being useful as a devil's avocado situation is out of sync from not being attacked is Mark's got in a car that lets him take 10 damage before he blinks in and does a whole bunch of stuff. So pre-planning to reduce that could be good. It's more using it from a non, what's it called? Shackles, where they have to take an X amount of damage to then distribute that elsewhere. They're the only kind of very niche situations where I can see this useful, but as a whole, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
And that's where I guess items make the character as opposed to, needing to a character needing a certain item.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, you're right. There's probably some instances. I think with the shackles, I might mess with some of your stuff though, because you have to take the damage to deal it. But there are probably still instances with the shackles that you're just taking damage to do a thing. So yeah, it's just an interesting one. But yeah,
no, good point. Item 27. This is my second shit chest. Cloak of Warding. So this one is immediately after an enemy ends its move ability adjacent to you, perform push 1, targeting that enemy. Just like I said, I mean, this already has a bit of a prerequisite from 2 other items that a piece of hide, but the only thing I can see this being useful for at the moment anyway, just off the top of my head, is maybe a trap if you've set a whole bunch of stuff up and something walks in and you can bounce it off. Yeah, but other than that, there are so many other cool chest pieces. I just don't see how this one is good.
Yep.
Okay.
I know, I agree. I think that it's like if it was tappable, maybe then it kind of you can reuse it. If it was when they move next to you, you can make them perform a move 1 rather than push 1 would be cool, because that may, if you are standing next to a trap, you can move them into the trap. Right? Or in the way of something else, like repositioning something when it moves next to you has a cool tactical element to it. Like you can use it to block shit or, whatever. But just pushing it back 1.
But this wouldn't even be by choice, would it?
No, I don't think so. Just the first thing that moves next to you has to go 1 away.
Boom, there's your chest piece gone.
Pardon?
Boom, there's your chest piece gone.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is that it basically negates an attack. So it's saying the next time something moves next to you to attack you, it's not going to attack you, which is great. Like in a way, it can be, but because it's not optional, you have to be really careful with your positioning. So it kind of seems like a trap or a caster type item where you're like, you know what, I've got low health. I'm just not going to get attacked. And if I do, I want to go away and not be attacked.
Yeah. Yeah. Super squishy out the back support. Yeah. Really doesn't want anything next to them because they're running around with brittle on them because of themselves. I can sort of see that being somewhat useful. Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with this crap.
Nice.
My next is Robes of Doom, which is item number 47.
Oh.
Is this our first overlap?
Yes.
Okay.
It should coincide with my last one. So no.
There we go.
Take it away. We can cover it now.
Okay. So on the next 2 sources of damage from attacks targeting you, suffer 3 damage to give the attacker brittle. Right. Takes 3 items to make. It's like very convoluted. I think the key thing with this is I like the idea of you taking damage to give brittle out. I don't think that inherently is a problem. It's the fact that it's not may. Right? So it just means that to get it to work effectively, and we found this with brittle, right, is that lining up brittles to make the brittles worthwhile is actually quite tricky. So it's like just a case of like, you'd want it to be working, but then you have to be like, can anyone then hit it next turn, or is it going to tick 1 damage with wound? And then you find these situations where you're like, well, I don't want to take 3 damage to you brittle it and it not get hit very hard. So it just kind of is a bit weird.
Yeah.
I really like the idea. I just think that it's too restrictive.
Oh, cool artwork, cool name. It requires 3 items to create. I think the biggest flaw with this item is you still have to take the hit, right?
Well, yes.
So you get hit for attack 5 or attack 6, right? Then you take another 3 on top of that to then put brittle. So the card literally probably reads take 9 damage to brittle something. Yep. That's the hard bit, I find. If it wasn't on the next 2 sources of damage from attacks, and if it was similar to the cloak that Mark had, it had 2 charges and take 3 damage to brittle something, I don't know. It just seems a little bit rough to go through an attack, then take another 3 to apply brittle.
Yeah, I can see a way that you would, like, if I had to think of a way to make this work, right, it would probably be with something that can give itself a lot of shield. So you're talking about like a banner spear with the shield kind of spec, or a crab shield spec, or even the astral shield spec type of thing. I think the The drill does this all right as well. So there's a few where if you went massive defensively, you can make the attack damage you're going to take minimal, so that the 3 damage is kind of not adding. It's not adding up to taking 8 or 9 or 10 damage. You're like, oh well, with the extra 3, I'm only taking 3 or 4. So then it becomes a little bit more appetizing, because you can kind of go, well, I'm going to be in the front line, and I'm going to make these 2 things that come up and hit me have brittle, so next time someone can explode them. It still isn't May though, right? So it comes this situation where you have to take 3 extra damage the next time you take damage, which becomes really dangerous.
Yeah.
So yeah, especially if something is like, hey, like hits you and gives you brittle, right? So you get hit, you take 2 damage and get brittled, and then you take 3 damage, it turns into 6 damage. It's like, oh, I didn't want that. I didn't want to take 6 extra damage. So
brittleception.
Yeah.
I can totally see that if a group has no way of applying brittle, this is a questionably reliable way of getting it.
Yep.
Which can be good, but I just don't think it's worth it.
Cool. All right, my last one.
Mm-hmm.
Mirrored armor.
I think I shortlisted this.
So item number 175. When you
Yeah.
suffer damage from an attack, the attacker suffers an equal amount of damage. And it's a loss, so it's once per scenario. I think the issue that I had with this is that the once per scenario relies that you're going to get hit really hard. And I know that happens sometimes, but that's, again, really hard to plan, because it is when you suffer damage from an attack. So it can't be one of those, I dealt 10 damage to myself, because that's not an attack, right? You can't drink the hammer potion. You can't do marks like I explode myself thing, or even a lot of the shackle stuff that deal damage to themselves won't trigger this, right? So it's a retaliate thing, but it says when you suffer, they suffer an equal amount, right? And then it's lost, which means the first time it triggers in the scenario. So something comes up and hits you for 1, and you're like, oh, okay, well, there goes my only armor piece.
Yeah.
And that's just, again, and also you have to put 2 -1s in there. So you're playing a character that that's going to be one of the more tanky ones anyway.
Yeah.
So you're playing a tank character with this armor that you want to get hit often. That's why you're playing tanking, but you don't want to get hit unless it's for a really big number. It's just I don't get, like, there might be a super niche way of playing this.
Yeah.
But it seems really, really awkward to make work. So,
because even damage reduction is, I mean, it's the damage you suffer, right? So even if you reduce it, you'd be like, haha, I didn't really take that much. Oh, so I dish out not very much.
yeah.
It's, very interesting. I would be curious on people who are making this work. Let us know how wrong we are, and let us know how you have made some of these items work with what characters in what situations.
Yep.
I know that some of them will be a niche thing. It's just working out which characters and why and how niche. Because, I mean, Blinking Cape, for example, which is one of your favorite ones that you covered earlier, is universally useful. And I would say
Magnetic Cape.
Yeah, Magnetic Cape, sorry. You can make useful on any character. So, I'd be curious about some of these other bin pieces.
So, and without going into too much of a rant, I think from a thing that I think would make these better, and I think the issue that I saw with some of the ones I put on this list is that they're restricted by the either being tap or lost, right? And so some of the abilities, like the mirrored armor ability, right? I think this was probably where I went to after that thought, was that would be cool to have as a lost ability as a May, right? But also the armor does something normally.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
like, have a passive ability that happens all the time, or have a tap ability, right? That might be, I don't know, it maybe gives them disadvantage or something, whatever. You make something minor, so it's an upgraded version of something, or maybe it just, for 1 attack, do 1 shield or something, whatever. You do it, and then you also have the ability to burn it, right? When it's used to do the ability, but then it's gone. Then it no longer functions for the rest of the thing. So you're kind of getting something out of it, because otherwise you're just in this weird space with these lost ones where it's like, well, I have to wait for the perfect time for it to happen, and hopefully that happens. Otherwise it's a waste, because it's a slot.
Yeah.
Right? If it was a bag item, sure, because you get lots of those. Right?
Yeah.
But it being a chest slot, it's like, oh, do I take that, or do I take one of the other things that I know is going to be really useful for either my character build or just useful in general.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, is that most of the ones that are going to be like add shield, add retaliate, like they're universally going to be useful for so many different people because everyone wants to mitigate damage. The niche ones, and don't get me wrong, some of these items and how niche and bizarre they are, I want them to continue experimenting with weird shit. I like the fact that they're not boring cookie cutter. This one has one shield, this one has one shield and one retaliate, and so on and so forth. I like that they're definitely just going, hey, how weird can this get? Do you reckon we can make a character take like 3 damage to apply, a condition to something like that? Hell, let's just put it in there. If it's garbage, I mean, it's finding the tools and finding the toys and someone just going, whoa, I think I just found something really cool with this, and being able to share that. And, making there's a MacGyver out there that can make every item in this amazingly useful. I'm sure. That person's not me. Because everything's bad.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. I think I love the idea that they make these crazy items. I just want some of the crazy items to be more useful, and not useful all the time, but at least be like, if I trade off like my defensive things, then I can actually like have these cool burst attacks, right? But I think it's the May and the like kind of compulsory that kind of messes it up a bit.
Yeah. So, no, nice work. It was cool to do that. What are we doing this week? Should we do hands?
Boots. Hands? Yeah, we'll do hands.
Wait, hands are not gloves, are they? Is there a glove slot? Hands are weapons and stuff, right? Do we do one-handed?
Oh, yeah. What do we got next? Okay, well, there's single-handed and there's two-handed. We have to do them separately, right? Because there's like lots of both of them.
Totally. All
right, so let's do single-handed.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe we need to do more because you can carry more.
Yeah, okay. Should we make it 4? So
maybe we'll do like 4, or 5?
Yeah.
No, 5 sounds like way too many.
Sounds like 4. A lot. Like, we've literally covered 3 each on each category. Like, because that's good and bad. Don't forget that.
Yeah. Okay, true. Yeah.
All right, cool. We will wrap it up there. So good to do this again. Join us next week as we may or may not tackle scenario 62. I don't know. Maybe. Who knows? It could be.
What's 62?
I don't know. Like, I don't know. It just might be.
May or may not. Yeah,
may not. Exactly. Do I retire? Do I retire next week? I don't know. I've got one more character in me, so I need to work out what I'm going to do with that because I think I want to have one go with the opulent shoes and see whether or not I can have a good time with Sophia and her sister Cassandra.
Before you make an hour video of absolutely canning the Astral, right? Like,
that's
Yeah. If you want to see Deddy get cancelled, wait till he makes his Astral video, right?
I'm already racking my head around what format do I go in. Do I do my standard format? But I don't know if I have enough bin. So, with the next character, I don't know. Do I poll it or do I just surprise everyone with I don't know. Do I play something I've played before and try something completely different? No, that's silly. Anyway, I'm rambling. I've been your host, Dirty. I've been joined again by that man. God, sorry, you.
Me? Oh, yeah. I thought you were pointing to the guy behind your camera.
No.
All right. And remember, when it comes to rolling terribly, it's all in Phil shuffling your deck and putting his good luck on us. Yes, go, and we would never amDirt again.
Never.